Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those who don't know me, I'm Will Venus, and today I'll be discussing the 1994 unsolved murder of 56-year-old Larry Burt. If true crime is something like me that absolutely fascinates you, I would definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. It's down there, and ring the notification bell so you're notified when I put up my videos. I do upload things that are unrelated to crime, so there may be something else that in my back catalogue of videos that piques your interest, and I've also got playlists, so check those out. A quick disclaimer, I mean absolutely no offence or ill feeling by doing these videos. All I'm doing is compiling all the research that I've done and putting it into one video. This video is for educational purposes only, and hopefully, especially for this case, to raise awareness for this unsolved murder. At the end, if you have any relevant information, I will let you know the relevant authorities to get in touch with, which I'll leave with you in the description. Okay, so getting on with the case. At around 5:30 in the evening on the 27th of February 1994, the deceased body of Larry Burt from Ramsgate in Kent was discovered at the rear of a building known as the Old Pump House in St Catherine's Way in Wapping, situated in East London, overlooking the Thames River. He had probably died that day at some point. Tests carried out during the post-mortem indicated that he'd been strangled to death, probably inside of the yard, which is above the river. Larry was a quality control officer, and he used to test out products before they went to the customer, just to make sure that they were absolutely fit for purpose and of course quality. So I suppose in today's world it would be like maybe a product reviewer, someone like that, but like a product reviewer that worked within the company, not just kind of reviewing things at home. A very popular job. And within that post he did a little bit of invoicing. He was a kind of man that always had to have his tools in the right place, a place for everything in its place, you know, that kind of person. Also, as well as this job as the quality officer, he was also a branch officer for the Red Cross and held first aid courses a few times a year, and was very popular with his students and also his friends. Of course, teaching first aid is an absolutely vital skill, so it involved doing things like teaching how to do artificial respiration, CPR, bandaging, you know, things like that, of course being first aid. Which says to me that Larry was obviously someone that cared a lot for other people, and, you know, he just wanted to help people. Larry was said to have been quite a remarkable and talented artist and enjoyed drawing, and would often turn the things that he drew and painted into like greetings cards for his friends. I think that's a really nice thing to do, rather than buy a card from a card shop or online now these days. To make your own cards, I think that's a really lovely thing to do. So that says to me he was quite a personable man, you know, going by his acts of artistic kindness, and he was also known to have like a light sense of humour as well. A keen cyclist, he was often spotted on his bicycle, and the enthusiasm that he had for topics that really piqued his interest, but said by his friends to be very admirable. He would share his passions with other people and really convey, because he had quite a natural zest for life according to the people that knew him. His life at the beginning was quite sad because he'd lost his birth parents during the Second World War in an air raid, and also he'd lost his adoptive parents. So I imagine that would be quite a sorrow existence, living with all that grief, you know, losing two sets of parents in such, you know, tragic circumstances. I don't know what his adoptive parents passed away from, but losing your birth parents in an air raid must have been quite, well, not quite, very upsetting. Two of his friends said that Larry was so well liked he would probably need to book St Paul's Cathedral for his funeral to accommodate all the mourners there. Getting on to what kind of went on in Larry's personal world. Larry was a gay man, and I couldn't actually find if he was openly gay. Of course, we're talking about almost 30 years ago now, and even just a short time ago, is that being gay and open with it, it's not as it wasn't as accepted as it is these days. Normally I would say that someone's sexuality, to me personally, it's irrelevant, but I feel it needs to be mentioned here because, like I said, even as recent as the 1990s, being gay wasn't socially acceptable as it is today. Yes, there's been a lot of progress made since the 1990s, since the 90s, but there is still a lot of progress that's needed for equality. So then that got me to thinking, because this is an unsolved case, could this possibly have been a homophobic attack? Some sources have said that Larry met his killer in a gay bar. That bar, I couldn't find out which one it was. Police followed up on this inquiry, which ultimately led to nothing. Now, for those that don't know and watching for the first time, I'm an empath, so what I do is imagine what life is like for that person, and persons around Larry, and also just things relating to the case. So could it be that back then, when police were interviewing, like people in the gay scene and things, perhaps they were a bit too scared to speak, maybe because they thought the police would be, like fear out of prejudice, or if not being outed, when, like I said, it wasn't quite as acceptable in the early to mid 90s to be openly gay, even as recently as that, which I find, me personally as a gay man, I find that quite unsettling, quite, not just unsettling, upsetting. I find that when people can't be their true, authentic, genuine, fabulous selves, that really saddens me. Like I said, Larry was quite an artistic person. He enjoyed painting, looking at art, going to art exhibitions. I think that's maybe why I was drawn to this case, because I'm quite an artistic person. So I suppose that's why I was drawn to this case, because I can relate to that in numerous levels. He had lived in Ramsgate in Kent and would often visit London every few months just to see friends and just to do a catch up and things. According to police, they thought that the motive for his killing would have been robbery, because quite a few of his belongings that he travelled with had disappeared. Some of the possessions that he carried around with him and was well known for carrying around with him had just vanished. It was thought that he'd been strangled as he drew or painted landscape scenes on the wasteland in Wapping, East London. Now, what do we know happened on that day? Well, on the 26th of February 1994, he got the 9:52 AM train from Dumpton Park for Victoria, London. It wasn't known where Larry was going in London. It wasn't known where in London Larry was meant to be visiting, although it was noted that he had clearly intended to return the same day, because he had bought a same-day return ticket. So why would you buy a return ticket if you hadn't intended to go home? The guard that was on the train, his name was Ian Williams, said he sold Larry Burt his ticket, said that he noticed that about 20 minutes into the journey, he saw Larry sitting opposite a woman. The guard said that although he didn't actually hear what they were talking about, he noticed from their behaviour that when he went to talk with Larry and this woman, that he noticed that Larry was quite friendly with this woman, although he didn't necessarily know her. He was just kind of judging by body language. He added that he noticed that the girl had a 5-day return ticket from London to Whitstable. It was noticed that Larry had been the sort of person that would, just start a conversation with a stranger, and back then police had asked the young woman to come forward, saying that if Larry had mentioned his plans for the day to her, then it would have been really important for her to get in contact with the police, just so they could kind of find out who he was meeting that day, where he was going, things like that. Although police did put out appeals for this woman to come forward, but she didn't. So no further clues were offered. It sounds to me like Larry was the sort of person to, just strike up a conversation with anyone, just to pass the time of day. Something I would probably do. You know how, like, if you were travelling on the bus or the train, or, you know, you kind of see someone that's on their own and they look quite personable, and you just go over and start a chat with him about, you know, as what a lot of British people do, talk about the weather or the news of the day. I think if police managed to get this woman to come forward, it would have given them potentially an idea of who he was going to meet, where he was going. And so, like I said, although once Larry got to Victoria, it wasn't known what he did, although it was thought that he had probably then cycled out to the East End. So if he cycled, then he must have got his train with his bicycle. Did anyone see him on the train or get off the train with his bike? Yeah, you'd think someone would notice someone on the train with a bike. I would. It was noted in the past that he had talked of visiting St Catherine's Dock on another one of his interests, which was he was quite into looking at boats and chandlery. Now, I didn't know what get my words out here. I didn't know what chandlery meant, so I looked it up. It's a person or business that deals in wax products such as, you know, candles and soaps and other things derived from animal fats. Although they're not as prevalent now, you know, with more awareness of animal rights, vegetarianism, veganism, etc. So there is... Could that have been a line of inquiry that could be looked into? I don't know. I'm just thinking as we go here. It was thought that he had cycled around Wapping during the afternoon and that he might have visited the town of Ramsgate pub, which was in Wapping High Street, which he'd done quite a few times before. He had a good knowledge of Wapping and just the East End in general. He knew his way about, he had a pair of binoculars with him, and at the time he also really enjoyed bird watching. That sounds like my kind of friend that does art and is into unusual interests. Sounds like my kind of friend. And he was also known for being an accomplished photographer. Again, really artistic person. The said pub that he went to was by the River Thames, and it was thought they might have sat out in the pub garden looking over the river with his sketch pad and binoculars. Did anyone see him there? Did anyone on, you know, like, you know, you get the tours of, well, like tours of the Thames on the boat. Did anyone on the boats notice a man with a huge sketch pad? It would have been quite distinctive because he was out there on his own creating art and, you know, kind of watching the world go by. His body was found the following day at 5 p.m, 27th of February 1994 at the rear of a warehouse over the Thames, known as the Old Pump House. It was thought they had been murdered in the yard and placed there outside there the day before. He had been strangled with a blue scarf that had been left behind at the scene, and it was noted that the scarf had not belonged to Larry. It was further thought that the scarf probably did belong to the person that killed Larry, that strangled him. The scarf was well worn, it was blue, indicating that the person might have owned the scarf for a while, or if it was like quite a weathered scarf, could it have been from someone that was possibly a bit down in their luck. Interestingly, it was also noted that Larry's bicycle was missing when his body was found, and the police said that they were interested in hearing from anyone who knew anyone that had come home without their blue scarf, but with a bike that had just appeared out of nowhere. Now, getting on to the details of the bike. The bike was a metallic blue Man's Abbey Racer Tourer style bicycle that Larry had modified since he had got it. It had a white seat, chrome mudguards, blue handlebars, a back pannier and single reflectors on the wheels. Other items that were missing were his pair of adjustable Swallow 8x21 binoculars, a 35mm automatic compact camera with a built-in zoom, as well as his personal belongings from his wallets, like his ID cards. I suppose back then you would have had, could you have had bank cards back then? Maybe not a debit card, but maybe a check card. And it was again noted that his black rucksack that possibly contained, you know, like his sketching pad materials and pencils and things was missing. So could someone have robbed him of his belongings to sell them on? If so, what kind of person could carry this out? Could it be someone, like I said, down on their luck? Where did they go to sell the paintings? Did the person who carried out this crime sell them? Discard them? Police at the time said if someone who stole the belongings after finding his dead body came forward, they weren't interested in prosecuting them for the theft. They would be eliminated. Just all the police wanted was information on details of the murder. They weren't interested in prosecuting for the theft. Just all they wanted to know was information that could lead them potentially to the killer. So I'm just thinking, where would the bicycle have gone? I couldn't find anything that said the police searched. Well, my instant thought when I heard that the bicycle was missing and it wasn't found, my instant thought was, could it be in the Thames? I couldn't find if the police looked in the Thames for it, but obviously with the size of the Thames, the logistics would have been almost impossible, I think. I could be wrong. And also, given the ferocity of the River Thames, is it a river? Yeah, it's a river because it moves. Given the ferocity of the Thames at the times, the bike could have easily been, flown down the river into whatever sea it goes into. What sea does the Thames go into? Maybe I should have thought of that before I did this video. And if it wasn't thrown in the Thames, did someone steal it? Well, they must have stolen it because it wasn't with Larry, and I don't imagine that he would, knowing the kind of person that I imagine Larry to be, I can't imagine that he would just abandon his bike somewhere. So I think it's a distinct possibility that the bike was stolen. If they didn't sell it, where did they keep it? And if they did sell it, who to? Who came home missing a blue scarf and a new bicycle? I think someone must know something out there. All of these things to consider, and there's been no conclusion of who killed Larry Burt. If anyone can remember, as far back as 1994. I mean, I say as far back, it was only almost 30 years ago, but for some people that is quite a long time. That's pretty much all of my lifetime. So yeah, if anyone can remember as far back as 1994, did you see Larry cycling that afternoon? I mean, if this crime happened nowadays, police, I imagine from the various crime documentaries that I've watched, I imagine that all they would need to do was just look at CCTV, because they would have absolutely no problems tracking his journey. It's said that London in particular is the second largest camera abundant place in the world, so I don't think they would have any problems solving this crime in this day and age. All they would need to do is check CCTV of the trains, the shops, pubs, streets, restaurants, then they'd be able to trace exactly where Larry went that day and with whom. Yeah, so that's all I could find on this case. So this kind of, I want to say concludes, but it's not concluded because the crime isn't solved, so I'll just say that's where I think I'll end this video. Unfortunately, this is just one of many unsolved murder cases. I do hope that by creating this video I raise awareness of the case, and the wish that it jogs someone's memory. If this video has evoked a memory in someone, I'll leave the details of the police force you need to get in touch with in the description. So if you have found this video interesting, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, of course. I'll be uploading these videos quite regularly, depending on how this first one goes, like the success of it, and if I'm any good at this. I'm still very new to making these kind of videos, so forgive me if I get one or two things wrong, and I'm still getting used to working with new technology and tools and everything. So yeah, subscribe, and if you found this video interesting, give me a like, and you can share and do all that good stuff with your friends, and I shall see you next time. Bye.